Hello and welcome to the D365 podcast brought to you by Source and Connect. Today I am welcoming Kerry Hughes Wright onto the podcast, which I'm really excited about. Um, Today is episode 15, Women Who Rise, Kerry Hughes Wright on leadership and longevity in tech. Now, this is the second podcast that we're releasing this month, which is to celebrate International Women's Month. So, Kerry, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Welcome.
Nice to be here, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. How are you today?
Good, really good, really
Good.
good. I've got a couple of days, few days where I am working remotely, but I'm in London for a few days. Some meetings and catching up on theatre. I since I
Nice.
moved to Cumbria, I sort of try to get down every 6 months or so and do a little
Yeah.
bit of a binge trip.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Lovely.
it's good.
Okay. Fantastic. So we know what one of your passions are. That's great.
Yes.
Um, so just to start us off then, Kerry, you've had such a fascinating career path. For anybody who hasn't met you yet, how would you describe your journey into tech?
Oh, crikey. I often wonder how I got here, but actually, no, I do know how I got here. And I think it's not an uncommon route, but just to kind of summarize, I think one of the unusual things about me is possibly that I went straight into the workplace from school.
Yeah.
Um, I for a variety of reasons, college, university wasn't possible for me. Still did really well at school. I was in the top stream all the way through, I'm proud to say.
Done.
Came out with, if for those watching, listening, who remember O levels, I came out with some pretty good 8 O levels, I think I came out with. I mean, within
Fantastic.
2 weeks of leaving school, I went into my first role, which was
Yeah.
a YTS scheme as a clerical assistant. I think I've always been quite ambitious because literally within 9 months of that, I was looking for another position, and I got a similar position with a paper merchant, and I flourished and grew there. I had a really really great boss. He encouraged me to go to night school. I did a BTEC in business and finance. Um, he allowed me to cover every single part of that business. And I
Yeah.
mean every single part of that business. I learned how to do accounting. I learned the old fashioned way. And that really stood me in good stead when I went into
Yeah.
consulting. Um, I got involved in sort of, I could see that the warehouse could be, I'll use the term optimized. I certainly didn't use the term optimized in my late teens, early 20s, but I walked the walk with our
Yeah.
warehouse manager, and I looked at ways that I thought they could improve things. Got involved in route planning for the vehicles. Um, I was office manager, I guess is what you would call my sort of role that I ended up with. And when I was about 22, I think there, we introduced a an ERP system. And we were working with a partner from Manchester, actually in Stockport.
Hmm.
And my boss, Alan, he asked me to kind of take the lead and represent the business. Really great opportunity. Um, and that really sort of set me up for success. And I then was sort of invited, that partner that we worked with pretty much opened the door for me and said, if ever you want to move, if you want to get into IT, then we'd love to have you. And so I think when I was 24, 25, I then took that move. Um, and and then that's where my sort of journey into business applications, IT. We talk about IT, Sarah, but when I kind of explain it to people, I very much come at this from, and I, always talk about business transformation. And one of the things that I did when I was in my early 30s was, because I felt a little bit not at a disadvantage, but I always felt like I needed to prove myself. And
Hmm.
so as I grew in my career, I was regularly, especially in my late 20s, going into my early 30s, I was working alongside people who had started their careers on graduate schemes, and
Yeah.
they'd sort of grown in businesses. And I kind of looked at my journey and I thought, well, I very much had my own graduate scheme, although I didn't go to university. But I still wanted to prove to myself that I was as good as, I suppose,
Yeah.
dig a bit deeper, take what you will of that. But I
Yeah.
then did an MBA part time. So in my early 30s, whilst I was working full time, I was full on working in consulting, business applications delivery, and
Hmm.
then did a part time MBA. And
Yeah.
actually, my dissertation at the time was the impact of business transformation on IT projects.
Yeah.
And that was, where am I now? So that was when I was 34, I think. So
Yeah.
25 years ago. I'm now
Yeah.
59, going on 60. And
Yeah.
that still stands.
Yeah.
It's You can get the tech right, you can get the IT right, but it's
Hmm.
the business transformation, it's the people side of it that's going to make the success.
Yeah. That's
Um,
such
yeah,
amazing experience. I actually didn't know that about that. I knew that you were an office manager because I've seen
yeah,
that on your LinkedIn for paper merchants, but I didn't realize that you went
yes,
in from school. That's absolutely
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, 100%. Quite
So
proud of
you've
it as
had
well.
that experience on the client side early
Yes,
on.
I did. I
So you
did.
could have then taken that into your consulting career as
and
well.
and
Fantastic.
that happened a couple of times. So started off that way, and then when I took that move to work with the first partner, so based in Stockport, me from a local town but still quite a drive to get to Stockport. And this was before the days of remote working, so I literally was getting in my car every morning at like 7:15 to get to Stockport, a nightmare of a journey for those from the northwest. M61, M62, stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
Um, did that for a couple of years. And then I was working for a client, and the client was doing um, a UK wide consolidation project. And they were implementing the software that I was working with at the time, and they were based in Bristol, their head office. And so they headhunted me and they asked if I would go over to their site and take a lead role on that transformation. So I was literally, it's crazy when I look back, I was literally in my mid to late 20s at that point, maybe 27.
Yeah.
Um, and so I joined them, and I spent a couple of years, and then sort of stayed there for a couple of years beyond that. But I led on their side, and this is where I got into the project management side as well. So I was kind of expert in the software. I'd got to know the software really well. I had all of my end user experience, so I could talk the talk with a warehouse guy. I could talk the talk from a distribution perspective. I could talk the talk from a finance perspective, credit control, you name it. I'd had a hand in it because I'd worked for a small company and
Yeah.
I'd learnt everything I knew from that. I'm still in touch with Alan, who was my boss. Coincidentally, his surname was Hughes, but we weren't related. We're still in touch. He's now
That's nice.
82, 83,
Ah,
and he lives just outside Warrington. So since I moved north, I see him more regularly. But even
yeah.
when I was south, I've always stayed in touch with him and his
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
So
But
um,
he gave you that opportunity and
he
obviously
gave me
believed
the
in you and
opportunity. Oh
yeah.
my goodness me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've said that to him time and again. And he's like, no, you worked hard. He said,
Yeah.
you were the one who would come in. He said, you would lead a stock take. Nobody asked you to. You did it because you wanted it done right. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what he remembers.
Yeah.
So it is quite interesting. And I think, we're talking from a sort of how my career has evolved as a female, and I think my career will have been different to other females, but I hope that throughout my career, as I have moved into more senior positions, I've always made sure that I look out. I've always made sure I look out for equality, for making sure that people are given the right opportunities. But in particular, I think if I reflect, there are a number of women that I've worked with. I know how tough it is as a woman in this industry, having been in it as long as I have. And
Mm.
even now, it's still more male dominated. But I always looked out for younger women who were coming through on their career journey, but they were juggling much more than I ever had. They're juggling young families.
Hmm.
And I haven't had children. I have a stepdaughter.
Yeah.
But I didn't have those challenges. However, when I was doing my MBA, my mother was very ill. So I was juggling full-time work, studying part-time, and, helping care for my mother who was had terminal cancer. So that was a juggle for me. And I think at that point in my life, that opened my eyes to, oh my goodness, this is difficult. I mean, it was more difficult.
Yeah.
And then very, very aware of what that then means for women who are juggling not just children, but possibly also caring for
Yeah.
aging relatives. It's a lot. It's a lot that more so women, I think, take on. In fairness, though, any men watching this, I know there are men who also take on that.
There
That's
are,
why I've said
there'll be splitting feathers.
I've always
Yeah.
tried to look out
Yeah.
whenever I see it, whenever I see that somebody needs some flexibility, some support.
Yeah.
This is, this can be a challenging sort of industry that we work in. So we've got to make it viable for people.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard to do the juggle. I think that women biologically are more caregivers
Yeah,
than men, and not to say that men don't care for elderly, because I get that a lot actually in my recruitment world. It will be this person has had 6 months out because they've been taking care of
really good point.
family members,
Yeah,
and that will be women and men.
yeah,
Always, yeah. So I would actually say it's 50-50, but I think from my experience of candidates anyway, but I do think that biologically women like to care for
yeah,
people.
yeah.
And so I certainly in my role in the household, I'm more predominant in caring for our son. And I don't think that's not taking my husband's rubbish. He's
Mm,
not. He's great, but we have our roles.
yeah,
He
yeah,
does a lot of the cooking, which
yeah.
is a real good for me. Like I'm not a natural cooker. Like he can literally look in the fridge and to me there's nothing there, and he will whip something up. So we have our roles, and I think everybody has their roles. But yeah,
Yeah,
predominantly women do tend to do the
yeah.
caring nature. So when you're
If
juggling work and MBA, I mean, I would have a breakdown. There's no way I could do
no,
the
but
MBA as well.
do you know what though? And I think you and I spoke about this. So I started off, got lots of really great experience. And I always say that working for Rose Fox Paper Merchants was my university education. And
Yeah,
I am more than happy talking about it. And I have spoken about it to, especially when as I moved into more senior roles on the partner side, I was part of a team. I was a driving force in these teams, but you know what it's like in the partner world. We have to bring in new talent. And so, three of the partners that I've worked with, I've set up consultant in training academies, call it whatever you want to call it. All of the partners call it something slightly different. Um, but I've always looked out for young people, not even young people, but maybe slightly older people coming into those schemes. And whilst on paper, a lot of companies will say you've got to be degree educated. Honestly, I can tell you now, Sarah, I have influenced and brought in people to those schemes who weren't degree educated, but I saw something in them.
mm,
Maybe they've taken a wrong path. Maybe they've taken a different path and they need a hand to get back on track. I remember one guy at the time he applied for one of these positions. He was working in McDonald's. Now, if somebody was to look at that CV, but I looked beyond that
yeah,
in his CV,
yeah,
and he actually came onto the scheme and he
yeah,
did really, really well. I remember, and you and I spoke about this, and I'm still in touch with this lady. I won't name names, but one of my early leadership roles, this was on NAV. This was possibly round about 2004, maybe. Yeah, I think it was around 2004. And I just gone into a leadership role for the sort of, I think at the time my title was professional services manager. It was a NAV practice, and I was basically leading the consulting and the delivery. And I was mid-30s, and I was doubting myself. I was, am I capable of doing this? There are far more experienced people. There's far more, there's older people. They know more than I do, all of the self-doubt. And as I built that team, I interviewed a lady, and she wasn't, English was not her first language.
Mhm.
But she was incredibly talented. She was a qualified accountant. She'd moved to the UK from another country, and she was struggling to get recognition at the level that she was qualified. She was a qualified accountant, and she'd been a highly experienced consultant in her home country, and she was kind of stuck in a support role, and she was
Mm.
trying to get back into consulting. And I could see her capabilities. And so, I offered her a role. She more than applied herself, but added to that, which is even more impressive, she had a 4-year-old, and she was having to study to get her equivalent accounting qualifications in the UK
Mm.
that she'd had in her home country.
Yeah.
And so that, for me, I look at that and I'm like, wow. And maybe somebody else who might have interviewed her might not have seen the same things that I saw. I don't know. But
Yeah.
again, she's another person who went on, and she's had an incredibly successful career and juggled those things.
Mm.
So I've got many, if I reflect back, many situations where somebody has needed that bit of flexibility, somebody has needed that bit of support. Circumstances have changed in their lives,
Mm.
separations, um, becoming a mother, and not being able to be on the road as we used to be in the 2000s, late 90s, 2000s. Crikey, the mileage that I clocked up is
Mm.
is ridiculous. We didn't have the options that we have today.
Yeah.
But I've sort of had, I remember another lady, and she was a consultant. She was on the road a lot. She was becoming a mother, and actually we looked at her role, and she did step back because she needed to, but we kept her in
Mm.
the business, and she then went into more of a support role that allowed her to continue to work, allowed us to continue with her expertise,
Yeah.
um, for her to be able to juggle those things. So I
Yeah.
do, I do hope that, I think I know, but I do hope that over the years, as I've progressed and I've moved into those leadership roles, that I've helped people along the way and made the right decisions. Don't get me wrong, I can be tough. My husband has called me in the past a hatchet woman, so I can be just as tough as I can, looking out to make sure the right things are being done.
But I think it's about the person that you're managing, and if they're really passionate and they're putting everything into it, and you're giving them that opportunity, you're obviously going to nurture them and help them along the
100%.
way. But if you're not getting that, then that's when you need to switch.
100%.
And not in a horrible
100%.
way, but where you had to change your management style, I'm sure.
And it is that is all part of management and leadership. And it is, I'm a great believer in leading by example. And I would never ask anybody in any of my teams to do something I'm not prepared to do. And I
Yeah.
think because I've got such a broad range of experiences, having worked within business for as long as I did, and then worked on the partner side, and then went back to work on um, the role that I took on in my late 20s, where I went in to kind of lead that. What was a pretty large project now when I think about it. It was a couple of years, and it was rolling out um, a software that's not a well-known software, but it was rolling it out across the UK, but also consolidation at the same time. We
Mm.
were centralizing call centers from regional call centers into a central call center in Whitchurch in Bristol. That call center was about an 80-seater call center. The business transformation side of that, Sarah, when I reflect back, and I've not done it for some time, you know, that was as much about the people, like I say, as it was the technology. The technology underpinned it. We had all of the people side, that organization was going through transformation, and they were having to find new roles for people. These call centers that were sitting at the regional sites, what was going to happen to those people? You balancing all of those things. So I think I had some really good exposure, some really good experiences in my sort of 20s going into my 30s. Then when I went into management in my sort of mid 30s, I think I had a lot that I could kind of pull on. Still had a lot of self doubt, always have, still have today, still
Yeah.
have today. Will
Yeah.
still question myself on my capabilities and make, and I suppose that's my way of just giving myself a sense check. And I don't think it's a bad thing having a little bit of self doubt
Yeah, I think it's
personally.
quite natural. And I've got a few questions about that we'll move on to in a minute.
Okay.
Um, but so you've worked your way up through some of the leading Microsoft Dynamics tech houses, eventually becoming practice manager. What were the biggest turning points that helped you progress through those ranks?
Crikey. I think as I go through, I mean, some of it is the technology journey itself, for
Hmm.
one thing. But I would say for me, as I progressed through those roles, it was getting the right balance between sort of being an expert, because I had gone from my when I was hands-on consulting. I think this is answering the question. But when you are hands-on in whichever role you are hands-on in, consulting, project management, whatever that might be, um, you are very much focused on what you are doing there. You're very much the expert. And then as you move into the management and the leadership roles, you're no longer the expert. You've got, I think for me, where I've benefited is that I know enough about many things to be dangerous. Even going into the proper tech side of it, I know enough to be dangerous. And then I have been fortunate. Some of the organizations that I've worked for, crikey, even going back to sort of Torex days, Torex was really good. So this is the 2000s, mid to late 2000s. Torex were really good as sort of running training for their managers. So that was good. I think having done my MBA, and I remember one of my favorite areas of my MBA was organizational behavior,
Yeah.
and it was and that's so much of what we do in tech. I keep coming back to it, don't I? Is the transformation side. So when the more you understand about organizations, and also I think it helps to understand and know how to navigate some of the politics and some of those relationships, where especially when you're on the partner side I think is even more challenging, because you are looking after your team. You're making sure that you are delivering successfully in a practice leadership role as well on the partner side, the SI side. You are pulled into pre sales. You are looking after your people. You are making sure that delivery is successful. You are a point of contact for sort of steercos, C-suites for your clients. It's
Mhm.
it's a bloody it's a hard role, that one. It really is.
I can imagine. And how
Um,
many sort of projects would you be managing at that sort of time?
so as an oversight, I would probably also be a key point of contact, more sort of and if I say program director, it would be more of a guidance for,
Yeah.
dependent upon size and scale of program, it would be more of a guidance if we had a PD on
Yeah.
a larger transformation project. I would also support that program director, therefore support the team, but also probably be one who was present on steercos. And again, coming back at this from a female perspective, it's not uncommon to be the only female at a senior level who is sort of representing fairly large scale transformation programs, pretty large budgets. Um, so, but that I can honestly say I don't feel like I have, and I'm really fortunate in this because I know not everybody is. I honestly don't think that it's held me back. My um I don't think it's held me back. Have I been overlooked? Do I feel I've been overlooked for positions because I was female as opposed to male? No, I don't think I have. I think maybe there's a couple of occasions where I thought maybe I was the better woman, I was the better person, but I don't think it was down to male or female.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm the same actually. I've had a lot of very good experiences throughout the recruitment businesses that I've
mm,
worked in, and actually nearly all of my managers who have really believed in me and pushed me have been male.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
in the recruitment industry, it's very it's almost 50-50, I would say, in terms of how many men and women, but it as the higher up you get, it tends to be more male. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think ladies tend to sort of stay in that consultant kind of role because it is easier, and I can relate to that now, being a mum,
yeah,
and I was a mum much later, so I had my little boy when I was 35. So,
yeah,
but there are women that are obviously having them younger than that,
and some
going
older.
and
Yeah,
some older, yeah,
yeah,
but having him at 35, and I now realise how, and I obviously had the idea of setting up a business with my mum baby.
mm,
um, I now realise how difficult that is to
yeah.
have. It's more about the mental load and having so many different hats. So I can understand why women with children wouldn't progress up, because quite honestly, it's just too much. It is
It's
just
a
too much.
lot. It is a lot to juggle. It really is. And in fact, the last program that I was on, and again, I won't name names, but if this young lady watches this, she will know that I'm referring to her. Incredibly talented project manager who I was fortunate enough. She worked with me on my last program, and she has two young children. And in fact, when she joined me on that program, I think it was November 24, um, her youngest was maybe 6 months old,
Yeah,
and her eldest would have been 3.
yeah,
And you would never know that she is juggling two young kids with um, a very demanding role,
yeah.
that I had to convince her that she was capable of doing, because I could see when I was talking to her, when we interviewed, she was, and I think a lot of women do this, but I'm just going to refer to now. She'd been put forward. I could tell that she was a really strong candidate. Did she tick every box? So there were certain aspects of what we were looking for in that role. It was a very technical PM role, and she was concerned that she didn't tick all of the boxes for her technical knowledge. I said, it really doesn't matter. I said, you tick every other box. I said, and
Hmm.
that side of it, I know you will pick up. You'll pick up as much as you need to pick
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
And yeah, she's one of the best PMs that I've ever worked with.
yeah,
So, but doing it whilst juggling two kids, again, fortunate in the world that we're in today, she could do it. She can do it from home, and I
yeah,
do think that's a game changer. I do think
yeah,
in in making sure that more women are able to flourish and grow in some of these more technically IT based roles. And I think we all saw it. I think it was starting to happen before COVID, but COVID obviously was the thing that really changed this sort of remote working versus going to an office or going to customer site. And I know some industries, it's retail. You've got to you've got to go into a physical location. Hospitality, you've got to be in a physical location. For us, I do think we've got that flexibility. The program I've just moved on to, so I joined this program at late November, and there is more travel required for this program. It's European, and I was in Italy the week before Christmas. but actually being on site, I'm working for a manufacturing organization. It's a D365 transformation program across Europe. And that sometimes is necessary. Manufacturing is more complex. Again,
Mm.
it's more male dominated, but actually being on site was invaluable for
Yeah,
me, and
yeah,
seeing how the site works and seeing their production process and meeting the people. I can be much more effective in the work I'm now doing remotely. Yes, there'll be more time on site. Of course, there will be.
mhm,
And there may be for some women that might not be an option for them. But the
yeah.
vast majority of women who I know who have made progress, they will always find a way of making it work as well.
Yeah. I think if you've got the infrastructure at home around you, I use the word infrastructure,
Yeah.
um, to help you, if you have advance warning that you need to go to
Yeah.
site, then you can put those things in place. And when you've got, a job and you're hopefully paid quite well, you can then have a bit of help, like having a cleaner, for
Yeah.
example, or a
Yeah.
little bit of help here and there with whatever you need. So
Yeah.
I think you know being a parent, it's the level of washing, and I think that's what,
Yeah.
for me, like working at home, it's just a constant conveyor belt of washing. I have
Yeah.
two stepdaughters,
Have
and then
you? Yeah.
yes, yeah, my son, but one of them is a little bit older now, so she doesn't stay as much. She's pretty
Mm,
self-sufficient, but the
mm.
other it's 50% of the time, and she does a lot of sport, so
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
endless, yeah, amounts of washing. So
Yeah.
I think if you're in that role and you are earning a bit of money, you can get that help in, and then it will allow you to be able to continue with your career. But I think
Mm.
it's really important to add a caveat to that, to say if that's what you want, because it's
Yes.
actually
Yeah.
also really okay if you do want to take a step back, and
Exactly.
even if you want to park your career and you want to take 5 years off, be with your children, also absolutely fine. And I think there's a lot of pressure for women now that we have to do everything. So we need to
Yeah.
have the successful career, but you also need to be a really great mum. And you also need to be, on top of your game for schooling and, well, book day next week. You've got to have an outfit for this. It's that mental load.
Mm, mm.
Um, and if you want to take a step back from your career and you want to focus on that, then that's totally fine too.
It
But I think
is.
it's about supporting the women that do want to progress in their career and to make sure that it's fair.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
yeah.
think you're right, and it's supporting it both ways. And I think I
Yes.
gave of the examples I've given. So at least one of those is where I've helped somebody take a step back because
Mm,
that suited their career
mhm.
at that time, but we didn't
Yeah.
want to lose we didn't want to lose their expertise.
Yeah.
And I think, and I always say to people as well, I believe in personal development. I really do. And especially in tech, when you work in tech, you can't afford to sit back. And AI is a game changer again. It's I can see, and I'm working with it already past couple of years, but now I've moved into it to take on a new program role. I'm thinking, how can we do this differently? And how can we do this more efficiently by using AI in
Mm,
different guises? So, and it's there within the technology itself, but I'm thinking from a delivery perspective. I strongly believe in personal development, and we can't sit still. However, what I have said to many people is and it's to your point here, Sarah, being being really good at what you do is absolutely fine. You don't have to keep striving to go to that next role. The number of people that have said to me, I'm a senior consultant, I now need to move into a management position, or I want to move into, and I, through career guidance and through appraisals and mentoring, I have said to many people, what is it that you enjoy? What is it that makes you successful? And actually sometimes moving into management and leadership, that is a different role
mm,
totally, and it's a different skill set. And I think it's a different set of pressures and stresses. um so yeah, I think it's absolutely fine to be good and really good at what you do and enjoy what you do, and you don't
mm.
have to keep pushing it to the next level.
Yeah.
unless you really want to. And if you do want to, then yeah, I think there should be career paths. I think we should look at, as we've said a couple of times now, as we've been talking, how do we support people who have got more challenging personal circumstances? So it's
Yeah.
not as easy for them to do things. Shouldn't hold them back. It should not
Mm.
hold them back.
Yeah. And that's a really good point actually about supporting people that where it's not as easy to do things. And then we're not just talking about women, but maybe different sort of
Yeah,
ethnic minorities or neurodiverse candidates
yeah,
as well. And
yeah.
it's really great. I've been working with one of the big four actually, and they're really, really hot on diversity and inclusion and making
Mm.
sure that we make it fair for everybody. And it's great to see that we are having that sort of awareness now. I can imagine as your career has developed, it's not always been like that. So how has it kind of evolved over those years? Have you really seen, a great improvement in say the last 10 years, or has it kind of been a slow progression?
I
What does that look like?
I think because of the type of person that I am, and I would say I really got some great exposure to diversity and inclusion when I worked at Lloyd's.
Okay.
That was an absolute highlight for me. Totally out of the blue. I'm ERP through and through, with a bit of CRM thrown in along the way. AX back in the day, if you remember, had
Yeah.
CRM capabilities in it. So I've always known CRM, but I got an opportunity, tail end of my time with K3. The AX D365 was sort of going through its transition to become what it's become today. And there was a version called AX7 round about 2015, I think. And it was really difficult in the partner world at that time. Nobody could sell. Nobody could sell. And out of the blue, I got this opportunity, to speak to Lloyd's of London
Hmm.
about a D3. It was termed a D365 role, and it was a mix up. So the recruitment agent, it was a CRM role,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was like, okay, I thought this was finance, F and O, and I spoke to the guys at Lloyd's, and I said, think that we've got things confused. That's not my area of expertise. And so they said, no, let's carry on talking, and we carried on talking, and they'd been, sort of going down the technical route, and I came at it from more of a business transformation
Hmm.
route. And they offered me the position. So I ended up there for a couple of years, and I set up their Centre of Excellence for them, which continues to thrive. But whilst there, probably the least stressful role I've had, whilst there, they were heavily into diversity and inclusion. Inga Beale was the CEO at the time, and that was a game changer in the insurance market.
Hmm.
Female, she'd gone through her own challenges in that industry that she talks about openly. Um, so it was a real agenda item for them, but as in they were really serious about it. So
Yeah.
being quite senior, I got a lot of training.
Hmm.
Um, that was around managers training in recruitment and making sure that, everything about unconscious bias and things that I think I was always aware of, but to actually sort of be able to kind of now pinpoint those things
Hmm.
was really good. And heavily into, I set up with some colleagues, we set up an allies network. So this was driven through LGBTQ at the time. The insurance market, very middle class white male dominated. Fair
Mm.
to say, I'm not saying anything out of turn there. And by the time I left, and they won an award actually, and the guys credited me for the awards that they won. It was after I left. We had hundreds of people wearing rainbow lanyards, really to kind of. But
Amazing.
when I used to talk about allies, yes, it was the LGBTQ that was the driver. However, when I used to talk about allyship, um, when we did lunch and learns, I regularly spoke about allies from every aspect.
Mm.
So, yes, you wearing your rainbow lanyard shows to your colleague or the person you've never met before that you are a friendly face. That
Yeah.
rainbow lanyard is representing that you're a safe space.
Yeah.
However, don't think of it just from LGBTQ. Just think of it also for anybody who is struggling for whatever reason, poor mental health, neurodiversity, women in the workplace, whatever it might be. Take that wider so that the ally, sort of the sign of the ally, represented so much more. So I grew up with my own mum had her own struggles with quite poor mental health.
Hmm.
So that was from quite a young age. I was maybe 12, 13. Um, and it was something that I, again, was really pleased to be able to talk about because of my own experiences
Mm.
growing up with that and the impacts that it's had on me. And
Mm.
she was also her life partner was transsexual. So that was another aspect where I
Yeah.
could really bring some authenticity to some of the things that I then spoke about.
Yeah.
And I also championed, I was fortunate to do some volunteering for a homeless charity, but I've always been a great supporter of, and again, it's part of the same story, isn't it? None of us know what anybody else has gone through. We
No.
walk past people on the streets, and some people make these assumptions that that person, you can't give them money to help them because they're just going to go and drink it or use it to get drugs. And I've helped a number of homeless people again over the years, got to know some of them quite well. I actually had a couple of articles published in the Big Issue. A guy that I
Amazing.
used to see. So I used to run from Waterloo to my office in Bank when I was at Lloyd's,
Yeah.
and I would go past Peter pretty much every day. And every
Yeah.
Friday I stopped and chatted and we got to know each other. And then, yeah, we just I ended up, somebody took a photograph one day. I was training for the marathon. I stopped, I was chatting with Peter. And then, whilst I was talking to Peter, somebody else came along and they gave him a cup of coffee. And
Yeah.
so this person also took the time and he said, he introduced me to this person. And then another person stopped. And so there was me, maybe three or four other people, and Peter, who's selling the Big Issue. And we kind of realized we're all friends of Peter's. And and then I spoke about that at Lloyd's as well. And actually a number of people at Lloyd's then said to me that they really hadn't thought about homelessness in the way that I was then sort of representing it to
Mm.
them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Where do you
I
find the
think,
time for all of this? So you're
oh,
training for a marathon, helping the homeless, running, practices. I just,
no, but I think it was, and I feel guilty now because, since I moved to Cumbria, and I think I said this, Neil and I moved to Cumbria in 2020 during COVID, and I'm really, really fortunate. I thank my lucky stars every day. I've got good health.
Mhm.
I've got I'm fortunate that I've got stability in my life. I don't have any major problems. I try to look out for others the best that I can. Haven't done as much networking as I used to do when I was in the South. I used to do a lot more networking. So I am trying to
Yeah.
get back into that. And part of that, I think, is, you know, we can all help each other, can't we? And
Yeah.
and I do think it's important that we try to do that.
Yeah.
Try to give back. Try to
Absolutely.
give back.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to the imposter syndrome. We'll come back to that
Mm.
and confidence. So you and I actually talked about this before the podcast. So I have prepped a couple of questions on this. So it's something that many women experience. What has your relationship with confidence looked like throughout your career?
Oof, gosh. Uh, I think some of my lack of confidence comes back to I didn't go to college, didn't go to university. So in the
Mm.
professional space, I've always, I think, challenged myself more.
Mm.
Do I challenge myself more than others? I don't know. But yeah, I do challenge myself a lot to
Mm.
demonstrate I'm as capable as others, even though I took the steps that I've taken. Um, I I will there's still situations that I will go into even today, and I will have those self-doubts, that sort of lack of confidence going into that situation. Nobody would ever know it. Nobody would
Yeah.
ever know it. And um, when I have sort of said or confessed that to people, it's almost as if they kind of like don't believe that they don't believe you. And I'm
Mm.
saying it just to get sort of I don't know, a compliment. And it's not at all. It's a genuine thing. So I think it comes back to that sort of, am I as good as everybody else? That's kind of going into the imposter syndrome as well. And yeah, I think it's just something. So some people, I think a lot of people will have that bit of self-doubt, that
Yeah.
lack of confidence, but it's something that's been with me my whole life, Sarah, to be honest.
Yeah.
And even now, I'm turning 60 this year. You would think that it's gone probably not as bad. I think age
Yeah.
age does have a lot to do with it.
Yeah. You
Um,
start to care less about what people think.
and I think I've got the confidence. I've got the confidence now, having done this for as long as I've done it. I I've got the confidence now whereby if I put a recommendation forward, if I try to guide or direct for the direction that I think something needs to go in, and if I'm not heard or not listened to, then I will make my own choices now. Whereas I
Yeah.
think when I was younger, I would have fought more to defend my position, and I wouldn't have had the confidence. Whereas now, genuinely, Sarah, I've had a couple of situations on my last program, not on this program yet, but on my last program where I have fundamentally disagreed with
Mm.
a decision a couple of times, and it's gone against my advice, and I have stood my ground,
Yeah.
and I would not have had the confidence to have done that a younger me, but it's taken me a long time to get there, and that's the professional side of me that has got that confidence. And I think it that does come into the imposter syndrome side. It's pretty much like when you said to me about um us doing this podcast, and I'm like, but why why me? Why would why would you want to talk to me? I'm sort of,
Well, you have
yeah,
a fantastic career and so much to talk about. And actually, there's more that's come out of this. And I thought it would actually, I've learned a lot more about you than even from our briefing call
yeah,
before.
yeah,
Um, but it's a natural thing. And like you said earlier, I think it is actually quite good to have that because it
yeah.
does keep you on your toes and it does mean that you come to things prepared. Although you didn't have the questions to this podcast. This is off the cuff,
That's
but
fine. That's fine. But do
but
you know the
it
other?
does prepare you, I think, to have that because I have that as well. So if
Yeah,
I was to go into a client meeting completely unprepared, thinking that I knew everything, that wouldn't benefit
exactly.
me at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, and I
yeah,
don't think any of us can do that. And then I think the other thing that I would say to people is, and I go back to that kind of first position that I went into as a professional services manager. I would say the other thing is, and that was there was a lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, but I spoke about it. I
yeah,
wasn't afraid. So however, and maybe that's where sort of my lack of confidence, there's also something in me that forces me to overcome it. And on many an occasion where I've not been certain and I've not been sure, then I've sought out advice. I've been open. I'm a very, very transparent person.
yeah,
I start from a position of trust.
yeah,
And if I get that wrong and if I'm let down, then that will make a difference to, still would be professional, but it would make a difference to how I deal with somebody
yeah,
moving past that. But I would say, anybody who is sort of progressing and has that self-doubt, speak about it, seek
yeah,
somebody out, a mentor, but
mhm,
recognize it and almost embrace it and use it to your benefit.
yeah, absolutely. So do you think that imposter syndrome shows up differently for women at different stages of their career?
I think for women will um they will they will want to tick every box in order to progress into something. Whereas I think men would progress into something knowing that they haven't necessarily got all of the experience that is needed.
Yeah.
That's not really answering the question about imposter syndrome, though. But I think for for me, and I can't really talk for others, but for me, it was that feeling of I'm in a position that I'm not actually capable of being in, or I'm being put into a situation to represent something or somebody that I'm not really capable of doing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think that probably is something, especially women in professions, and crikey, there's far more challenging professions than ours. But women who are in those professions, I do think it's more common in women than it is men.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to, we want to talk about the older generation in
Mm,
tech, and we also want to talk about menopause and workplace support.
mm.
So you made a brilliant point in our briefing that previously about older generation in the job market.
Yeah.
What challenges do you see the older generation facing when they're looking for work?
Do you know what? I think there is. We're in such an unusual time. Who knows what the next decade or 20 years is going to look like in the workplace? I know sort of, oh gosh, maybe 2018, 2017, 2018, I was really thinking about how do we blend the older generation and the younger generation. And I'd thought about that when I was at K3 and I was building out the academy scheme, and you've got these experienced consultants who have been doing what we do for many years, and we're bringing this younger generation through, and we can learn from each other.
Mm,
Um, so I think that is really key. So if I was in those sort of practice leadership roles, I would still be finding that one of the most interesting aspects of my role, as well as probably one of the most challenging. And it is as much about educating the older generation how to listen and accept the younger generation, and
hmm
how to benefit from their education.
Yeah.
We went through. I sort of 83. I came out of education. Yes, I've kept myself up to speed and through various different guises, but to benefit from the education of the younger generation who are coming into the workplace, we'd be crazy to not be wanting the for the older generation to not want to learn from it.
Mm,
But I do also think that companies, they need the older generation as well, because they've got the work experience and the life experience, and the blend of the two together is really how to get that right. I've spoken previously about there's a game reserve in South Africa. My husband's South African. There's a game reserve in South Africa, and they had this problem with the balance of the animals in the game reserve, and they had too many elephants, and so the elephants were reaching up and they were eating foliage that and the giraffes were suffering because the giraffes were then needing the same foliage. Might not be 100% correct. If anybody is going to Google this, but anyway, it's something
we get the
aligned,
analogy.
something aligned to that. So the decision was taken to cull the elephants,
Yeah.
and they made a mistake because they thought the right thing to do was to get rid of the older elephants. And as they got rid of some of those older elephants, the youngsters started to rampage. The youngsters didn't have anybody to control them.
Yeah.
They realized that they needed this blend of the
Yeah.
older generation and the younger generation. And I think it's the same in the workplace.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for sort of, sitting back and doing nothing. I enjoy what I do. I'm at the tail end of my career, but I love working with the younger generation. I think we're much more open about age. Again, it's part of diversity.
hmm
Um, and I think we should recognize, and again, this was this was a scheme I was involved with some partners and with Microsoft, probably around about 2017, 2018. And it was referred to as returnships. And
Mhm.
it was specifically about recognizing the fact we do sort of the academy schemes, the consultant in training. However, why are we not looking at some of the older generation? Why are we not looking at some women, men who've had to take time away because of childcare or looking after parents or whatever it
Mm.
might be, but they've got some great experience? Should we not retrain them? Why should we
Yeah.
not? No, we're prepared to invest in the younger generation and train them up in our technology. Why not take some of the older generation who've got life experience and
Yeah.
train them up in technology? And
Absolutely.
I don't, I mean, that, like I say, I've not been in the partner world for the past 5 years. So whether or not any of them are still sort of considering or proactively looking at how they recruit, but I know I certainly would be if I was still in that space, I would 100% still be looking at that,
Yeah.
definitely. And as for aging, and aging is a great thing. It's a gift, and um it can be challenging, and I think it's more challenging for women than it is for men. There is no two ways about it. And menopause starts for some women earlier than it does others. It
Mm.
has a massive impact, and
Mm.
I don't know that even it's spoken about a lot more
Yeah.
than it used to be, thankfully. I remember sitting in an office in Paddington with maybe about a dozen people. I was the only female in this meeting. Again, it was summer, and I remember I had on a red dress, and this dress had lining, and I got a hot flush,
Oh
and I
no.
I felt faint. My body just was full of perspiration. I looked down and I could see damp patches that were coming through.
Oh gosh.
And so I was really open. I knew the guys well,
Yeah.
thankfully. And I literally just got my bottle of water. I said, "Guys, I am so sorry." I said, "You're gonna have to excuse me." I said, "I'm having a hot flush. I just need to go and cool down." I said, "You could all support me." I said, "Let's take a break and we'll come back in 10." And
Yeah.
everybody laughed because I laughed.
Yeah.
They were supportive, and that was absolutely fine. But, you know, and I suppose that's a very confident side of me to have done that. So
Yeah.
I think in my professional life, 100%, and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's how you
it's tough.
handle it, isn't it? But if it comes as a shock, I can imagine for me, I'd want the ground to swallow me up in that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
And actually, I remember having that situation when I was pregnant and
Mm,
just having this huge hot flush. And it wasn't in the workplace, actually. We were having a barbecue and some friends and lads that I, went to school with and their wives. But I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And it's just really embarrassing. So I can
mm.
imagine in that situation, you've obviously handled it very well.
And I think it's important, and I hope that anybody who is listening to this will sort of take that into account. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We've all
No.
got we've all got husbands, partners, fathers, your brothers, and so they all of those men will know a woman in their lives
Mhm.
who is either going through it or has gone through it. There is no
Yeah.
reason that they shouldn't be sympathetic.
Yeah.
I think another one. This was an amusing way of dealing with it. On another occasion, I was in the office and I was talking with a couple of female colleagues. Actually, I was in like a very small meeting, and again, I got a hot flush, and I just said, got my water again. I said, "Come with me." And we went into the kitchen area and I opened the fridge door and I stood in the fridge and we carried on our meeting. And I used the fridge to cool me down.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Amazing.
I do talk about it, especially to women and younger women. And I think
Yeah.
it's important. And it does affect us, and it affects us. Brain fog, confidence. Again, your confidence goes as you
Mhm.
are in the menopause. Anxiety, joint pains, you name it. I also threw in, very, very luckily for me, but also a couple of years ago, I threw in a little case of breast cancer. So I'd been on HRT. HRT sorted me out with my menopause symptoms. And then I stage one, grade one. I'm one of the lucky ones. I found it early. So again, any women that are watching this, please check yourselves, because the sooner you find it, the sooner you can have something done about it. I've got friends, colleagues who have not been as fortunate. They have found theirs. They've been more advanced. Literally, after I found mine, a colleague, really great lady I was working with, she checked herself because of what had happened to me. And she also found that she had breast cancer, but she was in a far worse situation. So, but for me, I was one of the lucky ones. However, had to come off HRT.
But
So
don't they say that HRT can cause it?
they do, but that I think, and again, I don't want to give people the wrong guidance, but
Mm,
I think that was disproven as
yeah.
being a
There's
uh,
so many other
as
factors, aren't there?
there are so many
Yeah.
other factors, and I'm fit, I'm healthy, all of those things. Um, but for, I then can't go back on HRT since my breast cancer.
Yeah.
So all of my menopause symptoms then came back, and plus the medication that I'm on. So you then go on medication for 5 years, tamoxifen or letrozole, and that also then exacerbates your menopause symptoms. So I'd gone from
Great.
HRT solving everything, little blip, and then sort of menopause symptoms back, but even worse than they were.
Mm,
Again, I'm one of the lucky ones. I spoke to
yeah.
my consultant, and because of where I found how quickly I found mine, and it was dealt with quickly,
Yeah.
she has agreed that I can come off the long term medication. But part of that, and again, for women, I do think it's important we keep ourselves fit and healthy.
Yeah.
I am not a saint. I can drink just like everybody else does. I love
Yeah.
my chocolate. I love indulging. Sarah, I died pretty much the day of my life
Yeah.
since my early 30s.
Yeah.
And again, women who are working, juggling, children, or aging parents, whatever it might be, you've got to find that time for
Mm,
you. Somehow you've got to build that time in for you.
mm,
It'll help mentally, it's going to help physically, but there's got to be some time that all women prioritize themselves, their health. It's just really important for me. I lost both my parents at fairly young ages. So health for me has always been something. And finding time for the exercise, I got into the habit of, I'm an early riser, I'm a morning person, but I get up 5:30 every day and I do an exercise class or I go for a run.
yeah.
And that's been the case. And yeah, I just think it's really important for women, especially as we age, even
Yeah.
more so as we age,
Yeah.
and especially when we're going through menopause.
Yeah. It's definitely something that I struggle with. It's the first thing to go will be what I do
Your
for
time.
myself
Yeah,
because I can't drop anything else.
I know.
I always everything is obviously keeping the children alive and then work. I
Yeah,
have
I
to
know.
work. And then yeah, it's very, very easy for me to say I'm not going to do that breath work or
I know.
I'm not going to go for that run. So I actually have actually started I signed up to play football. And I've also
Good.
signed up for netball because then I can't because I can easily say I'm not going to go to the gym
Yeah,
and I'm not going to do that workout in the living room, but I can't let a teammate down. So
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
why I've done that, which is
yeah.
adding
Good.
to my load. But it's really
Good.
good and it's nice to connect with people as well and form new
Yeah,
friendships and
yeah,
do something out of your comfort zone. Turning
yeah,
up to a football pitch, and I haven't played for 30 years. A
yeah.
bunch of girls that are great, and in a town that I'm not even from, I wouldn't be sick. I wanted to drive either way.
Well
But
done,
it's
you.
yeah, it's good to do something out of your comfort zone. But I digress. But yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and I'm really glad that you're okay because I obviously didn't know that
Yeah,
about you
no,
either. So
yeah.
yeah, how long ago was that?
At 23,
Okay.
2023. So
Yeah,
this will be I found it in May. And I was, as I say, really fortunate. So,
yeah,
my guidance, even you, it doesn't matter what age you are. Women, we need to check ourselves. And if anything doesn't feel right, go get it checked.
Yeah.
Honestly, I
I think
know
it's from
that there's
40, isn't it, that the risks get higher? Because
yeah,
I've had
but
a
I
couple of little
honestly,
scares, but I'm obviously a bit, well, I'm turning 40 next year, but I think
mm,
I'm going into the category now.
yeah,
But I think it
yeah.
decreases as well, doesn't it? Isn't it between 40 and 60, something like that? And then it sort of
No,
peaks
this
off.
because they start mammograms from 50. So when
Okay.
you turn 50, you are invited for mammograms.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's anybody, soon as you notice anything, if you
Yeah.
notice anything that is unusual, you should get it checked.
Yeah.
It's not a waste of anybody's time.
No.
It's better to be safe than sorry. And like I say, I was just so fortunate. The NHS were fantastic.
Yeah.
um it's I from finding my lump in May. I didn't need chemo. I was early.
Amazing.
I had a lumpectomy and
Hmm.
and then radiotherapy, and I was you know all done and dusted by August.
Yeah.
So um
Nice.
yeah, very
Yeah.
very lucky.
Very fortunate. Amazing. Well, I'm glad you're okay. So, moving on then, just the last couple of questions,
Mm.
really. I know that you're really passionate about mentoring and team building. What do you enjoy the most about developing others?
Oh God, I love seeing people flourish. I
Yeah.
love seeing people grow in confidence, um, maybe, take on new challenges. Um, I think one of the things I miss as a contractor, so since I left, the last partner I was working with was HCL.
Hmm.
I left them at the end of 2020 and I went as an independent contractor, sort of leading global transformation programs. And the thing that I missed the most was my team. Um, but I have got new teams. So in the programs that I lead, I've got that program team. And I hope if any of them were watching this, um, they would all speak about me as a leader. But more importantly, it doesn't matter what their role is. I've always guided, encouraged, developed, even in the role I'm in now.
Yeah.
Even as a contractor, I just can't seem to stop myself. I sort of take people under my wing, and if I can see that there's areas where they can develop or they can improve, the program benefits for one, but they benefit personally.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really key. When I was on the partner side, I was actively involved in sort of building mentor programs and trying to build the relationships between mentors and mentees.
Hmm.
I worked with a couple of female colleagues actually to kind of build out a whole sort of methodology, for want of a better term, to help educate people how to be a mentor and how to be a mentee.
Hmm.
So I do think it's really important, but that team building, the people side of it, honestly, I've said it time and again. Technology is technology, data is data. Um, Sort of, the application is the application, but processes are processes. Ultimately, if you don't have the people on side, it's not going to work. And that's from the people that are at the receiving end of that transformation, but also the team, us, that are delivering that transformation. We've got to work as a team. We've got to be really sort of recognize that the most important thing that's going to make this happen is that team, and we're all individuals. And in fact, one of my colleagues from the last program, she always kind of, the term she always used, however frustrated we would get, and there's always challenges, we would always sit back and we would be kind of mulling over, okay, how do we overcome this latest set of challenges? She would always say, we're all human. And
Yeah.
we'd kind of sort of reset, take a step back, and just kind of like, yeah, we might be frustrated. This might be a frustrating situation, but let's take it back to basics. We're all human.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. So, what's next for you, personally or professionally?
on a personal level, I am very, very fortunate. I've said it a couple of times, but I make time for exercise. I've always been a workaholic, Sarah, and but I enjoy work, and I've stopped feeling guilty about that. But I do also make time for me, exercise. I'm fortunate at the moment. I'm in London for a few days. I'm binging on theatre. I always make time to see friends and stay in touch with people. Um, so I think I've got a pretty good balance. And then both a personal and a professional is about that ongoing development. And
Yeah,
right now, I want to invest, make sure I find some time to invest to sort of get behind AI and what that can
yeah,
do from a transformation perspective, because I know that there's more. I'm in contact with some organizations who've got some great tools, some great apps that they've built. But yeah, even though I'm sort of, some might say I'm approaching the tail end of my career, I'm not ready for putting up my feet. I enjoy what I do.
yeah,
It's interesting, it's exciting, it's challenging, not without its difficulties, but and I get to work with some really great people.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
But there's nothing stopping you from just keeping going, and age is
keeping
just a
going.
number.
Age is just
So
a number. Exactly.
exactly, you just got to
Yeah.
do you, and if it still feels right in your 70s, then why not?
Why not? I said, "Do you know what? Funnily enough, I was talking to one of my European colleagues. He's German and he's a little bit younger than me. We were both talking about the fact that so many people that I speak to of my age are kind of like, I just want to give up. I just want to, just want to sort of not do anything. And I'm like, what are you going to do if you're not working? He and I both said this sort of, and this is going to be contentious. Maybe I should or shouldn't say this, but the retirement ages that people are working to in their heads, Sarah, those retirement ages were set decades ago when
Mm,
people were only living to their 70s or mid 70s.
yeah,
People are living into their 80s, their mid 80s.
yeah,
So things have changed.
mm,
And yeah, I think, and you know, I don't know. Some people, we're all different, aren't we? We're all different. And for some people, they want to put the feet up, and they'll find other leases of life. But
yeah,
I guess I'm again fortunate. I enjoy what I do. So
yeah. That's
yeah,
the difference, isn't it?
yeah,
I know that my parents are they've got a motorhome, and all their friends have motorhomes, and they're just always on
yeah,
holiday.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, I need some help with childcare here. And I'm like, we're not around this week, sorry. So yeah, I think travel is probably a big one, but I think it's really
Yeah,
important when you are retired to keep your mind
active.
active. And I've
Yeah,
seen with some, family members and stuff, like a real decline when you stop working because
yeah,
you don't need to stay on top of things.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, but thank you so much, Kerry. It's been
That's
amazing
all right.
talking to you. I've learned a lot more about you, which has been great, and hopefully it's been really inspiring for our listeners.
Hope so.
Yeah, just hearing about your career, that starting not going to university. I didn't go to university till too, and it's
Yeah,
something that I've always kind of held on to, like, should I have done that? And I
yeah,
actually think now, running a business, I think, well, if I'd only gone to university, I would have, understand things a little bit more. But you have to make peace with, the opportunities that you had at the time. It's
yeah,
what you do with it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I
Shapes
think
you.
that's really encouraging for people.
Yeah,
I've also been chatting to a young girl, a contact of mine within the Dynamics market. It's his daughter. She's dropped out of university and really not sure where she's going. So I think this would be really, really good for her
yeah,
to listen
yeah,
to as well.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
No worries. And yeah, to all of our listeners, this is the second episode this month for International Women's Day. We are also doing an International Women's Day event as well, which you can inquire about. You can catch us on Spotify, YouTube, also on the Source and Connect website as well. And if you want to follow Kerry and the rest of her career, then you can get her on LinkedIn, and myself included. So thank you very much again for your time, Kerry.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.